Okay, so we're going to watch a video today on this, but I wanted to go over the last parts of the constitutional parts because we have several worksheets that were supposed to be assigned last time, but because of mass, we changed it. Okay, we bumped it to mass. So I think I changed the Google Calendar, but if I didn't. Oh, I guess we forgot the top part of this, didn't we?
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
do the Bill of Rights amendment.
So we left out talking about the two groups that were fighting about ratification. Who remembers what ratify means? To what? No? To approve or accept. So we needed all the different states to approve or accept this. But there was a debate, again, about how strong the central government could be. So you had those that wanted a strong central government, what were they called? And they were for the Constitution.
Federalist.
Federalists, and you had those that didn't want that and were kind of against the Constitution. They were the anti-federalists. Why were they against it?
Felt Constitution gave government too much power.
So they were afraid that their rights were going to be trampled on. Okay? Bonus points, first person can find the Constitution in your book.
It'll be Bella.
No? Joey?
Is it page 167?
167?
I found the word Constitution on 153. Yeah, I did too. Oh, I already.
I don't see it on 167, no.
153.
153, no. I'm not talking about the words Constitution. I'm talking about the actual Constitution.
172.
172. No, I don't believe that's on
156 and
157.
157. Okay.
157.
I thought it was gonna be 156 and 157, but yeah, was it
189.
What do you say, Ewan?
157.
157?
I said 156.
I don't believe that's right either.
189. 189.
It shows like the first page of it.
167. 175.
Gianna found it.
What? 189.
I said that.
Yeah, Ben said that already.
Yeah,
Did
he
you
did.
raise your hand?
No, I didn't.
You heard Ben say it, is that where you went to it? So you can't get it, and so we'll give it to Ben. So, we have the whole Constitution written here in our book. So it goes from 188 to what?
190.
No.
200. No.
215. 188 to 215.
That's a big Constitution.
So, one of the good things about the Constitution is they left a way to change it. That's called what? Look at your notes. Get a guess? Joey?
Oh, is it repeal?
But repeal means you take it back. I don't know why these pop-ups keep popping up. Maybe that's why they call them pop-ups.
Is that the Joker? Yeah. The 40 best actors of the movie.
Look at the part we haven't looked at yet.
Oh, Legends and Scream.
Amendments.
Amendment. Oh, there's an amendment.
To amend means what?
Six.
Change. So amend means change. They left a way to change it. There was a process by which to change. And if you go to page 204, that starts the beginning of our amendment.
Amendment number 1.
The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments. So on your papers where it says Bill of Rights, that's what you're going to write. The first 10 amendments. That before the Constitution was even ratified, they made 10 changes to it. Why do you think they would make those changes, and think of what those changes stood for? What were those changes called? First 10 amendments, what were they called? The Bill of Rights. What do you think they were about?
Or rights?
Our rights as people. That the government can't do what? Take those rights away. They're trying to appease who? Who was against the Constitution because they said it could trample our rights.
Anti-federalists.
The anti-federalists. So they're trying to get support for the Constitution by making these 10 changes right away. Most of us are familiar with the First Amendment because it guarantees 5 freedoms. What are they? Give me one of them.
Religion.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of press.
Freedom of the press.
Assemble.
Freedom to assemble.
Freedom to petition government.
Freedom to petition the government. So those, we're supposed to protect all those 5 freedoms. Nobody can take those away from me. The second one you might have heard, the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear
Arms,
Arms.
weapons.
So I'm allowed to wear short sleeve shirts
You weren't allowed to.
because I have a right to bear my arms. That was a joke.
I got it.
Oh, I thought you were being
You did-
serious.
you
I was
did
like,
What was the joke today?
Really, what was that about? What was the right to bear arms
being
about?
unable to have weapons.
People should be able to have weapons to protect themselves. And then the 3rd through 10th, each of those you could go through, and most of us have heard them because they deal with justice, that I can't be have a trial without a jury. Okay, I have a right to have my charges made known to me. I have a right to a lawyer. Sometimes the Miranda rights that you read if you're arrested are all rights that were protected in these first 10 amendments. So it took those 10 amendments right away for the Constitution to finally get ratified. When did the Constitution first get worked on? What year?
1791.
1787.
Oh.
When does it say right here the final ratification is? Isn't that in your notes?
1790.
1790. So it took 3 years for them to finally approve. And even when it's approved, there are still people in the states that what?
Don't like it.
Don't necessarily like it. And we're going to talk about even today, we're fighting over the same issues that they were fighting over back then. The issues are a strong central government, what's their job, and state governments, what's their job. So the Constitution basically said we have a federalism. This is the type of government we have. Power is shared between the federal government and the state governments. In other words, the Constitution gave certain powers to the federal government in Washington, and they gave certain powers to the state government. So that means if a state does things that the Constitution says belongs to the federal government, then that law is what? That law is unconstitutional. It goes against the Constitution, and what will happen to that law? They'll throw it out.
Oh, no.
So this is our supreme law of the land. If anything isn't in here, or at least implied in here, then what?
It gets.
It can't be a law. You can't make it. The only way you can make it a law is by doing what?
Following the Constitution.
Changing this document. This is our supreme law. And what's amazing is the fact how many times has it been changed?
1,000,000. 40.
You guys have it right in front of you.
Oh.
10.
You have it right. You opened up the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
They numbered the amendments.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's all?
No.
That's 15. XX 23. 27 times.
So 27 times from 1790 to now. It's only been changed 27 times, and we know the first 10 was what? Right away. So really, you could say from 1790 until now, it's only been changed 17 times. So it has been a living document. Living because it's been able to, there's no way the founding fathers could have known about the internet, cell phones, okay, viruses. But still, this Constitution has stood the test of time. So it's been a pretty amazing document, and we need to know the foundations of our government. Okay? This is all stuff you would have learned way back earlier that we should know on the pretest too. So our government is a government of 3 branches. What are the 3 branches? They're right up here. Okay? Executive branch. You need to know these. You need to have them in your head. What's the job of the executive branch? If you look at the name, it gives you a clue to what their job is.
Enforce the law.
Okay? To execute. Execute means what? If you execute something, not somebody. Execute means to carry out. So their job is to carry out the laws and enforce them. Then you have the legislature, which is Congress. And our Congress, we said, is what kind of a Congress? If it has 2 houses, it means it's what? Who remembers? What's the term for 2 houses?
The large. No, but
Bicameral. 2 houses. 1 house is called what? Unicameral. 2 houses is bicameral. So we have a House and Senate. Their job is to make the laws. And the judicial branch, with the Supreme Court being the highest, their job is to interpret the laws. That's why we're having so much controversy right now. Why are we having so much controversy? President Trump has the power to do what right now? Well, let's get into that here. Each branch, the founding fathers put a system called checks and balances to make sure that none of these branches became more powerful than the other one. So they're to check the power by their own powers. So, right now, we have going on in the news, the Supreme Court justice just died, right?
Oh, ooh.
Who has the power to appoint the Supreme Court justice?
President?
The executive branch. They have that power. But how does that power checked? How do they check that power so he doesn't have too much power there? Who has to approve his appointment?
The judicial branch.
No.
Oh, legislative.
The court person is the judicial branch. Okay? So the president appoints them. The Senate, who's part of the legislative branch, has to approve his appointment. By what vote? How many senators have to vote to approve it? How many senators are there?
100.
100. How many have to approve it?
51.
15.
51.
Oh.
Or 50, because if there's a tie, guess who breaks the tie?
51.
Not the president, the head of the Senate. You know who's the head of the Senate? The vice president. The vice president is the head of the Senate. So if there's ever a tie, the vice president gets to vote. But that power is also checked, because once that Supreme Court justice is appointed, how long do they serve?
2 months.
Yeah?
Isn't it like same as the president, about 4 or 8 years?
Nope. How old was Justice Ginsburg?
Pretty old. Is it for life?
Yeah, they're appointed for life. So once you're a Supreme Court justice, you're always a Supreme Court justice till you die or what?
You retire.
You retire. So you can retire. So the big concern now is that President Trump appoints this Supreme Court justice. She's going to be, in fact, would be the youngest ever Supreme Court justice. And then that means she's going to, for the next 50 years probably, have a say in how they're interpreting the law. So that's one way they can check the balance. Here's another way. We said Congress passes the laws, okay? They make the laws. But how can the president check that? Check means, how can he limit that power?
By veto.
He can veto a law. What's veto mean? Should know this term too.
So basically say no.
So basically say the law is no good. I'm not gonna accept it. If the president vetoes it, then what happens? Congress can actually check that power now. How can Congress check the veto power? Because then that law goes back to Congress and they vote to see if they want to override the veto. The difference is, to override a veto, first of all, to pass a law, how many votes does it take?
51.
Takes over half. In Senate, it takes 51. In the House, okay, it takes half of 535, whatever that is.
535 is 200.
Okay, or 538. I can't exactly remember that. It's one of those two numbers.
We'll go with
So it takes more than half But to override a veto, it takes what? No. It takes 2/3 vote.
Wait,
So that's why if a president vetoes a law, it's difficult to what? It's difficult to override a veto, because it takes 2/3 of a vote to override it when it only takes a majority. So this checks and balances was to keep one branch of the government from becoming too powerful. Another thing is Congress can pass laws, but how can the judicial branch check the Congress's power there? So they can say that that law goes against the what? What's our supreme law? What's the highest law we have? You gotta have this written in your mind, okay? The highest law we have is this, right here,
the book, the
Constitution. This is the highest law we have. So the courts can say that that law that Congress passed, they could say that Congress didn't have the power to pass that law. And they could throw that law out. Okay, and say it's unconstitutional. So if something's unconstitutional, they're saying what?
They're vetoing
It goes against the Constitution. How many Supreme Court justices are there?
109.
9. Right now, there's only 8. How many votes does it take for them to say some law is no good?
5.
Okay, takes more than half. So right now, it would take 5. And when they get 9, it will take 5. So that's how they check and balance the power of each other from becoming too powerful. And that power of, that's that judicial review, that's what this is. So the power of the courts to declare an act unconstitutional is called judicial review. So that's what you put in that last line. Everybody got that?
Yeah. Yeah.
The first time it was used was this case, Marbury versus Madison. This was the first case. That's the other thing you have to know. The Supreme Court doesn't sit and look at every law that Congress passes and then marks them off, okay, that's okay, this one's okay, no, that one's no good. They don't do that. The only way the Supreme Court will look at a law is with what?
There's a debate about
If a citizen brings it to court and says this law is what? This law is no good, it's unconstitutional, I shouldn't have to be obeying this. So throughout history, we've had some famous laws that eventually were thrown out. Like at one time, we had a law that said it's okay for schools to be segregated.
What does that mean?
That means in the 1950s, we wouldn't have this classroom would all be white. And then there would be another classroom that would all be black. Because the Supreme Court ruled that it's constitutional, it's okay for schools to be segregated, to separate races. And then later on, they ruled that what? That law is unconstitutional. So today it's unconstitutional to have a segregated classroom, to have only a white classroom or only a black classroom. It's against the law. So the big debate now, the big concern now of this Supreme Court, because in 1973, they brought another case called Roe versus Wade. And in Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court said it's okay for what? It's okay to kill babies, to abort babies. Abortion became legal in 1973. It came all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled it's okay. So the big concern by some that are on the other side of the spectrum, that are pro-abortion, they're concerned that this new justice is going to do what? Change the outlook of the court. So if a law comes before them on abortion, they will now say abortion is what? Illegal, which I'm for. Okay, definitely want that to happen. But throughout history, because of the difference in the makeup of the Supreme Court, they interpreted the law differently. One time they said slavery was what?
Okay.
Okay. But we had to pass an amendment. We had to change the Constitution for that to happen, to end slavery. What amendment was that? Learned this last year, right? You can look on your Constitution. Which amendment said slavery's illegal? Oh, do I need to get bonus points to get you motivated?
No.
Candy?
Sure.
Or what are you looking at again? Slavery.
Nobody remembers it, huh? Fiona?
I'm going to XV.
XV said what?
Number one voting rights. The
They
right.
gave them the right to vote.
Oh.
13.
13th Amendment said slavery was no good. Okay? So we have to understand the power behind this Constitution. It's our supreme law. And how they interpret it makes a big deal. Now, our quiz that we're going to be taking, the Constitution quiz, on Wednesday, is only going to be on the history, not this part. It's
Oh.
only on the history part. So that's up to right here. Struggle over ratification of the Bill of Rights. So from there up, and the other page on the Constitution, and the articles, that's what the quiz is going to be on. Plus whatever's on this movie. But the movie's just going to reinforce what that showed. Okay? And Chase, you can't see this movie because it's probably not going to show up very good, but I did put some other videos